Hello and welcome to the last-ish discussion of Traitor's Not. This is the seventh book in The Wars of Light and Shadow by Janny Wurts. We have been working our way through this book approximately 150 pages every 2 weeks, and we will continue with the next book about a month or so from now. The next book is Stormed Fortress. And meanwhile, we usually have the privilege of talking to Janny herself and picking her brain on various aspects of the book. I haven't scheduled that yet, but look out for a live stream um, announcement or link whenever that shows up on the channel. And yeah, with me, of course, I have the usual group of friends. Jared, could you start us off with introductions?
Yeah. Uh, I am at the Fantasy Thinker YouTube channel, and also, of course, can be found on pagechewing.com, where we schedule these kind of talks and other podcasts, for instance, like Speculative Speculation with our friend Chris down below.
Thank you, Jared. I was getting ready to jump in there with you having set me up, but I messed it up yesterday, so I don't blame you for filling in the blanks. So, yes, my name is Chris Moen from the Chronicle of Chris YouTube channel, and yes, you can find me in all those places that Jared talked about beforehand, and I'm eagerly awaiting this discussion because everybody else can tell me exactly what happened in better detail than I've been able to discern from the pages. GB!
I am going to be radical and not introduce myself this week.
Good man.
Just because.
Okay, thank you, Chibi. Are you upset at us?
No, I'm just being radical. That's all.
Okay, sounds good.
Dabby and
We can talk
wannabe.
about it afterwards. All right. I have
Chibi Poe is our resident expert on Wars of Light and Shadow, so
yes.
he's going to keep us in line.
Very much so.
Oops. I need to pull up my Kindle book, but because I read chapter 12 earlier in the week, I don't remember what happened. Where did we start? Was it with?
Well, Hal with Wood.
Mhm.
And where Arathon makes his vow to Jenya.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Yeah. And he he's like he confirms basically his high kingship free status, and confirms that she wasn't quite happy about it, seeing him.
Yeah, she wasn't.
So that was interesting. Some interesting character work there between those two at that point. And then Arathon can't handle his brandy.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh man. That's sorry. That's because he has to fight off his prescience, like that the far side triggers. I guess he still hasn't learned to control that. He had to leave Kivor early before he could gain full control of it, right? And did we see him struggle with it a little bit on Phelan's ship as well, or was he largely okay there?
I think you could be right. I think you could be right about that.
Yeah,
It seems like a long time ago.
Yeah, it does. Yeah,
It was just earlier in the book. It was the halfway part of this book.
no.
but it was. I agree with you. It does feel like a long time ago. Yesterday, when I was thinking back to that, I was like, was that a different book? Nope, it was earlier in this one.
Yeah.
Much has happened since. I like. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that whole series with Jensa. How do you say this? It kind of went exactly how you expected it. I mean, she was sort of alluding that it was going to go a certain way, but us knowing Arathon a bit, kind of knew it was going to play it the way that it did, at least for the part of it, which I think might be the last time that Arathon's very predictable before the rest of the book. It kind of maybe sets that up in some ways, maybe lulls you into a bit of a false sense of security of, yes, I know Arathon that well. This is where he'll always act in certain situations. And
yeah, that makes sense. I agree. It was very reminiscent of other interactions. I guess they didn't have the same. Uh, no, that's not true. Like Dakar, if you think of other people who really had trouble trying to like Arathon and then eventually came around to him,
Mm-hmm.
it went somewhat similarly in that they got a deep look at who he is as a person, and then and at least in the case of Dakar, he had to really grapple with that and fight himself to still try and find reason to hate him. But then he came around eventually, which I guess is kind of what's going on with Jensa right now. She's still trying to hate him, despite that, like she's just on the brink there. I think of she needs someone to hate, I suppose, for her father's death, but yeah, she saw how much he was hurting, and it was apparently more than she was. So she had to start forgiving him.
That is true.
Yeah, she definitely comes across as emotionally immature, though. Even for all of that I think through this chapter and then kind of going forward, it's very much she has this burgeoning hate within inside her or resentment for
Mm,
the loss of her father, but she doesn't really know how to channel it, and she doesn't really know how it makes her as a person. She sort of wants to act in it in some ways, but can't find it sort of within herself to really do the base things that she wants to do. So she's kind of giving herself room and space to do things in another way.
yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like lacking that lacking a focus for her anger.
Yeah.
You know, because it's she knows the deal with between her father and Arathon, but she can't. She's kind of young, so she's coming to grips with what all that means, and still extremely hurt, smarting from the death of her father and what he went through, and so yeah, it's yeah, that takes time. It's definitely one of those things that she has to work out for herself. And I think later on in the book, she starts to take action of some sort finally, in order to try to assuage that anger and that rage that she has towards him, misplaced or not.
Which makes me wonder. She is on a. If I'm understanding correctly, what she has set out to do is to quote unquote test the character of the prince, right? As she sees fit, because she's the captain and she's sort of exercising her right. But we've seen her be rather emotionally immature, so I'm curious how that plays into her role. Like, will she necessarily have to become more mature by the time she gets around to testing him, or will the lack of maturity make it so that the test is not a good one or not really valid?
Yeah. Well, I don't know what's going to happen with her because she kind of went off track
Mhm.
at towards the end of the book in the last chapter. She says she was going after Arathon, but then we find out that she's actually going was it south or something like that?
Mhm. She was in a
Mhm.
boat when we saw her last.
And like it was too late for like Alara and the other guy there were going to try to track her down, but
Yeah.
they were
Mm.
worried that she'd already gone too far and they wouldn't be able to catch up with her.
Yeah.
So she's up to something else right now because the intent was to go at the Arathon and make things right or what have you. But I don't, we probably won't find out what she's up to until the next book.
It
Yeah.
sort of feels like, I mean, one, she's missing the presence of a father, if you know what I mean, for guidance. She's missed that's literally the hole in her life. The mother doesn't seem to have any kind of real sway on her, rather than, kind of being disapproving kind of bystander in some ways. But it feels like this quest or this kind of thing that she's going to end up getting Arthur to prove will end up being her own test, if that makes sense.
Mm.
So
Mm.
it'll force her to be emotionally mature and rise up to the occasion and protect her clans and protect, whatever it is that's important to her. It sort of feels like it has that kind of rite of passage way to do it, even though she wants to enact something to show that's worthy and that channel through her pain, etc. but I feel like it's going to do the opposite.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I'd feel like she can't help but grow up to eventually execute her test, whatever form that may
Mm.
take. Yeah, I'd like to see where that goes.
Sure.
I think I was talking last week about how the two things that I'm most eager for are this encounter with Jensa and Arathon, and the other one with Lysair and his wife and son. And those literally happen back to back in this
Yeah, that's
chapter. So
true.
I like that.
That's right. Yep. Yep. And so, but before that, Arathon, of course, gets together with Alara. And did she have some kind of vision of the future? On my copy was page 427, but it was that kind of a prophecy she was having when it says upcoming events at Itara would change, something like that. She looked at, she saw somebody who looked like Jarrett's father, reborn to an unscarred
Oh,
youth.
yes.
The fresh glow of his presence did not blaze with hatred, no no gouging burns disfigured his face and stuff. And then upcoming events at Atara would change that. The required foray to curb practicing necromancy could not help but rekindle the fire and storm to launch more butchering headmasters into the field. And so was that her projecting into the future about what was going to happen with some of these younger clans people?
Interesting. Because we know obviously that the Jarrett's looking Stephen lookalike is Jensen's brother. Well, we got that part of it
right.
answered. And then obviously the events at Atara with the necromancers, we also sort of got that as well by the end of the book. So interesting why that's kind of dropped in there.
Yeah, it was all in italics in that paragraph.
Yeah.
And I was just like, okay. And
I thought she was glimpsing the bout of prescience that Arathon has, or at least the information that Arathon is getting through his
maybe,
far
yeah,
sight.
because they are very
Yeah.
intertwined with their thoughts
So
and stuff like that. Yeah.
yeah, because the line before the one about Ilera is their insistent pressure slammed through and broke over him, and then Ilera sensed the frenetic wave as it crashed. So I
Right.
think she's seeing what Arathon's seeing.
Seeing what he's seeing. Yeah, because then he shuts his eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there was, but that's still like a little bit of prophecy there, a little bit of vision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What
Okay.
Arathon's seeing is
Right.
vision, I think. And he's I guess this is literally true then, that Staven is reborn as I forget the current Earl's name, Jensa's brother. And then and I guess he's
no, that's not
yeah.
it.
So he's pretty unscarred now because he hasn't seen a lot of bloodshed, but they are going to because of whatever's going to happen at Itara. I guess the backlash from that with Lysair leading the army and stuff is probably going to create a lot of bloodshed for the clans.
Yeah, I think it's that the grandson just looks like
just looks like him. Yeah.
Barak, I think is his name.
Mm.
Yeah. Okay.
And so to Erethan's person, she's sensing from Erethan's perspective, it's like, wow, he looks like Stephen, except, not, a lifetime of, scars and battle and everything.
Yep. Yeah, the older brother of Jensha. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. That makes sense.
One thing solved. Excellent. What a start, Ron.
Next. What next?
So next was it Lysair? Is that the next little
Yes.
stage? Lysair and Alara? Well, him demanding to go in and see his wife.
Correct.
Yes, he goes to the
Hostel.
the
So to
hostel.
spell- yeah,
And,
that's that hostel. Yeah.
So
Well, no.
yeah,
Before
Sulfin
that, we
has.
have one thing though.
What's that?
Aerothin woke up from the all the brandy, and he and Alara have snuck off together
Oh yeah.
Yes, yeah. They
for shenanigans.
they have a hut meeting in the wild, and
It's about
yeah,
get
that
steamy.
was before we get the Lysaea meeting with his
Right.
his wife and son, and yeah, that was some pretty hot stuff there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's one word to describe
It
it.
was it was all set up. It was all set up for the next chapter, though. This
Yeah.
section called Twining, and I like that name, Twining, because it
Mhm.
really shows their their how wrapped up they are with each other. Yeah, and he had succumbed to the brandy, and so they meet up on the hill there, and he sets up. That's when he sets up the wards, right?
The wards.
Wards. Yeah. So
Wards, yeah,
they can't be found basically.
so that people can't find them and stuff like that.
Yeah. That's the next chapter, I thought. But... Oh, well. It's fine. We can talk about it now and then come back to Lysaea.
Yeah.
And then, yes, that was what you were waiting for with the meeting of Lysaea with his wife and son. I was waiting for that too, because I was just like, because Sulfan's worried about some sort of diplomatic incident,
Uh-huh.
This whole meeting, and then, but then when he finally gets the truth from his wife and son.
Yeah.
About everything, really. That was pretty good. That was pretty powerful stuff.
But as usual, Lysaea doesn't like the truth from other people. He doesn't accept it. He doesn't. His version is the only one that's right, and he has to be in control of the situation. And in some ways, it was sort of predictable, but a bit disappointing because again, the build up to that scene kind of promised that actually a big revelation was going to happen, especially when Kevor eventually revealed himself in that moment, and he just shrugged it off and went, "You're not my son. You're not the son that I know." And it's like, "Oh, god damn you, Lysaea, you're such a dick."
and you didn't even know your son all that well, so what right do you have to claim you're not his son? Anyway, that also interestingly went kind of how you might guess given everything we know about Lysaea so far. And he refused to accept the truth, refused to but he and again, like this, he makes him, all of his interactions with Elaine make him just so much more hateful because he gave her no respect throughout their marriage, and now he's demanding that she come back. For what? What respect did she ever have there that she would come back and listen to you? And he's offering her soul queenship and whatnot, but like, that's not what she wanted. That's not what she ran away from.
Yeah, because he asked her originally, like, what drew you away from Avenel, as if something else did it and not herself. And then, of course, she tells him, no, I left on my own, and you can keep your offices with their cold eyes and stuff like that. And so that kind of put the kibosh in, him thinking that she's going to come back with him because she needed his help or something like that. It was just like, nope, she left because she, partly because of everything he set up, really.
And then
Well,
you saw so he, when she again rejected him, and he falls back to, you either come back or I'm gonna go, tear a restaurant down. It's like, wow, dude.
Which he would have done anyway. It's not
Exactly.
like,
Yeah.
it's not like her returning would have stopped him. That was just a
But
lie.
yeah, I like how Elaine kind of puts it on and basically said, "Well, you told me that I was basically a husk to generate an heir for you, and at that point, I would live out my days just as a nobody. In some ways, like something of position, but not actually of importance in your life." So, I mean, his chickens came home to roost there in some ways, because as soon as Kevor was out of the way, and they'd never kind of addressed the elephant in the room, which is Cerebel, as being the problem, and part of that conversation, which I was sort of a bit frustrated by, especially with the known part of the playing part of the necromancy, etc. Like, none of that came up or thing. Now, I know Lane doesn't know about that, but Lysair does. So again, it was very much Lysair just passing judgment of saying, this is what I want and this is what you should do, and kind of trying to exert himself on other people without really having not even really a need. It's all about perception for him with Elaine, because he's not in love with her or anything, like, so it's like,
right.
it's very much about, you go there so that appearances are met.
Yeah.
To hell with your own life.
Yeah, he needs to continue looking good to his people, and that's why he wants her back. There is no emotional connection there, which makes it all the more infuriating. There was this bit though about how, I guess, Elaine's betrayal reminded him of Talet's and his mother's. What? She woke Lysair's ghosts and reopened the sting of each unrequited pain from his past. His regal face lost its impervious shielding. Rampant need and raw longing and hurt smashed his poise at one shattering blow. So I guess we knew that. Did we see that from Sulfin Evans' point of view before? That he's sort of projecting his rejections on Elaine, even though in this case he has absolutely no right to. Mother, yes, absolutely justified. Talit, completely misplaced, but fine, potentially justified. He was in love with her and she went to the enemy as far as he was concerned. But he has no right over Elaine for all he has done with her, or not done for her. And yeah, so it's interesting. I guess that whole dynamic.
Yeah. And then he's got to get mad and try to destroy stuff.
Of course he does. Like, wield the light, try and destroy Ad's hostel. I was gonna say hospital and hostel. And
it was really really cool how it was described at the very end of the chapter, though, where it says, as darkness roared over his reeling senses, he heard a distant clatter of flint as the warding virtue of the stone blade was clawed off his thong and discarded. And that's how the chapter ends. And you're like, oh no.
yeah, he threw the blade, even though Sulfin Evan was begging him not to.
Yeah.
A good thing he has his brother to come to the rescue.
Well, it did open up that possibility, especially with the events that were still to come, that actually Lysair was going to get drawn into it. It definitely that floated that idea in my head, with him getting rid of the dagger and the blade, kind of going, right, okay.
Yeah.
There's more play here than just Arathon.
Yeah. Between Arathon and Lysair, if we had to guess who would come super close to falling prey to the cultists, I would not have guessed Arathon, which I guess makes the last bit very interesting.
Right, yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, Lysair came really close previously when Sulfin saved him the first time, and now the end of this book, the tables have turned a little bit there.
For sure.
Interesting news item at the end of chapter 12, though, was the crystal being taken
by
back to
Celidi
Prime there. Prime Celidi, yeah.
Wait, I thought that happened last time. Did it
No,
happen?
no, it was
Did-
at the end of
No.
12.
End of 12, that's when she appointed Lorinda to fetch the box containing the crystal. It was already brought to them, but they haven't done anything.
Yeah, it was one of the other
Yeah.
ones. Was it?
Yeah, so they're just taking it off the
delivered.
shelf now at the end of that chapter,
That's right.
and
Oh,
and
I see.
so they're
And-
getting ready to do something with it.
And
But they,
sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, but it's kind of reaffirmed later on that these quartz crystals have a mind of their own. They will decide
Yeah.
what's going to happen with them, you know. And even was it Sapphire and Cardamom were kind of going, yeah,
Yeah.
the hell if we can work out how these quartz crystals work.
Yeah, that was fascinating. Like the crystal wishes to serve how it wants, not
Mm.
it's like it was. They mentioned that in chapter 13. It was like it's like you can't just use it.
Mm.
It serves as it wants to serve. And then I was like,
Yeah.
oh wow, that's really interesting. We don't know what's going to happen now because of that, because we're not privy to the
And
mind of a crystal.
and with the Coriani crystals, are all originate outside of Aetherius. So Seth was like, I don't know. I can't read what it's doing unless I held it in my hands.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, it won't be visible to him as part of his earth sense, right? Or
Correct.
Yeah.
Mm.
All of anything that originates outside of Aethera, they're blank spots.
Okay.
Nice.
The next chapter opens with Dakar casually predicting that a child will be born to Arathon. And
Casually.
Casually.
Yeah. Starts off casually enough.
And so
Yeah.
well, it starts off as almost like one of Dakar's drunken stupors,
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
Like,
Oh, no, he's drunk again. No,
yeah, because he's all snarky too. When Bragan says, "Whose child?" He's like, "Whose do you think?" Like it's nothing.
yeah.
Yeah. And it even says right off the bat, it's like, if it wasn't for the brandy, he would have seen it coming, but it took him unaware.
Yeah. Fate.
Yeah.
Fate.
That was kind of strange that the clans people were so intent on keeping Dakar his vision going with basically they were drugging him up with
TNL.
TNL, yeah, whatever that was. I'm not sure how. Did he smoke it or did he inhale it? How did that work again?
Smoking, yeah.
Smoking. Okay. So they made him continually smoke this stuff in order to keep the visions going, keep the high going, in order so that they could locate him. And I really felt bad for Dakar at that point. I was like,
for sure,
he was getting a little abused there, but
we kept on saying, "Stop, help! No, I can't do it anymore."
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So he was trying to find where they were, right? He couldn't have peeked the things around them.
Well, I think he was and I know, but he had to go through Arathon's wards in order to do it. But because he had permission from Arathon to do that, then he was able to do it through.
Yeah, it gave him a tie to be able to view it, but ripping them down or getting around them needed. That's why I like Caradmon or I think it was Caradmon.
Yes, yeah, it was. Yeah, and I found it interesting that Caradmon, as a fellowship sorcerer, there's really a question of free will right here, because the fellowship is supposed to be not impose upon free will. That's pretty much what we've been told. But I felt, to me, Caradmon was doing that by interposing at this point. and I had a hard time coming to grip with this instance of him getting involved, and it's definitely against Arathon and Alera's wishes.
But it's not so much that the copulation, let's just say, was a free will. It was about the result of the copulation that was not free will. They did not. That was being manipulated by Solidity at that stage. Was again the way I read into it. It wasn't so much that they were getting it on in sections that I just kept on skipping past, going, I don't need to read this. This is either too much detail or too flowery a way to read about it. I don't know. I was like, okay, the italic part I can just kind of scout over for the while, but
there is a purpose for it.
Okay.
I imagine there is, but yeah, but what part of the Coriani was like? Where was their influence here? I know that Alera has the permission from her order to pursue this path, and so was it through her crystal that was Alera being influenced?
They mentioned it afterwards, but you might have missed it. During the meeting in Peril's Gate, after what happened to J-Lot, Celody planted a sigil within Alera's aura that would have ensured that there was a childbirth out of this, and would have transferred itself over into Arathon's, being, and would have made it so that every kid he had from then on was a girl.
Right, so they could control. Yeah, they could control the.
Yeah, so any like, even if it wasn't Alera, any kids he had would be, girls. Because she wants to. One of her goals, is to create a.
That's a little presumptuous of Moriel / Celody that she can just take control of any child born to Arathon.
Yeah, that's in character with her.
Very much in keeping with character. But again, she's a bit like her. She expects things to be done by her design and everybody else.
And, from her perspective, if she can tear down the Fellowship and the Compact, then she's free to do whatever she wants.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but I still felt bad for Alera, and I thought that she said she had a plan. She is an herb witch, and but nobody wanted to really listen to that.
Oh yeah, no, that was the thing. She didn't know about it. She's, Alera and Arathon were assuming, they could have made sure there was no child born, but neither of them was aware of the sigil. So anything Alera tried to do there to forestall a pregnancy would not have worked.
Right.
But importantly, from Arathon and Alera's point of view, they do feel like their free will was interfered with. Like I think that's obviously the point of it is, like, actually, if they were going to conceive a child, it was on them to deal with it and deal with the consequences of that, rather than necessarily assume what was going to happen.
Yeah, that was, given the choice, they would have done. They would have gone forward.
Yeah, absolutely,
like,
and
that would have, I'm pretty sure that would have Alera break openly with the Coriani.
Yeah, and Arathon even told Dakar later on that he didn't care. He would have watched the world burn.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, okay.
It was implied earlier that Alera could choose to break from the Coriani with not a lot of with no consequences to herself, right? And so in theory, the child could also have been taken out of Coriani control, which the Fellowship sorcerer should not. I'm unclear about why it caused so much panic that they couldn't do anything afterwards, that they needed to stop it now.
Well, they and talk. Wanted to forestall it since it would have happened without the knowledge. Like I said, whether that was the best choice, obviously Erethan and Alair disagreed, but so they acted on that knowledge, and then in the immediate aftermath, since they were in Rethane, and basically right on along one of the major lanes, since he's completed one of the ties to coronation that ties him to the land as well. So Dakar had to do the thing, so that it didn't cause the whole forest to burn and everything like that.
So the thing that would have happened to the land, the grand confluence that they were creating, that would have happened if they had, let's say, finished, regardless of whether or not the child would be made, or would it have resolved itself if they had been allowed to finish? I was not sure.
Yeah, if they child or no, like let's say that the Salidi thing was not there, and they just done their thing and everything was, medicines worked and all that, then it would have made a lane surge and like rejuvenated the land and everything, but it wouldn't have like set things on fire or anything. It was just like
the fire was because they were stopped in the middle.
Right. It's like pressure built up and it had to explode. I was trying to think of a good word, for that without, yeah. But
it was like the electrical energy it built up around them and needed to have a release that was not the release, even though there was a release when they kind of brought Arthur around. And one of them, like a very forgettable sentence.
Yeah, I was like, I'm trying to think of words here. I'm like, yeah, and then I'm also like, I want to be 12 and use certain words and be like, no, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah. The chapter after that is Elera telling everyone off about this.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, then it very quickly goes towards what becomes the end game of the novel. Now, I thought this was very quick, especially given kind of how things drop in. It kind of went from almost as if Dakar was being punished by getting them to spend the night with these kids and set that bit up, to then this very run through into the big event, the big finale, so to speak. And
we kind of got the information secondhand that Arathon and Caradman had this plan. We got it from Dakar's point of view, like it wasn't. We didn't see it directly. We didn't see Arathon and Caradman making these plans or making preparations until they were already doing it, and Dakar was the point of view relating the events when he's coming in pretending to be something he wasn't, and trying to save these kids. And so that was an interesting way to go about that, with that different point of view, being undercover as a scumbag basically. And
all of them kids are like, what is this dude doing? Why are we having to watch this dude thrash around?
Yeah. And I admit it did throw me off a little bit, because I felt like I lost a little bit of sense of place for a second, until I finally got like a few pages in. It was like, oh, okay, all right, that's what's going on. Now I get it, but
it did have that feeling of skipped over a couple of pages kind of thing about it, because it did kind of go from Dakar sort of getting sent on this terrible errand to then realizing, oh, the errand is actually this. These kids are going to be sacrifices for the necromancy because they're clan's part and they have the gift and all of that kind of stuff. It was like a lot of the backstory kind of pulled together very quickly and then turned into then Arathon being captured himself at a certain point, and then the question of did he allow himself to be captured as somebody else in control, or what actually is going on in that bit. And I certainly was kind of caught on the hop on that, and it probably is because it was kind of designed from that far back to make you feel a bit off guard. But by the time it kind of came through in the end, you're like, right, okay, I understand what was going on there, and the fact that nobody knew, because obviously Sethvir was standing by, Cardamom was standing by, Luthien was standing by, kind of to act out the consequences of what was going to happen here. They thought Arathon was going to call out for help to the Fellowship, and he didn't. He did it in another way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
But that whole recounting of what happens there, it's like, oh.
Yeah.
But if he had called to the Fellowship for help instead of doing what he did, which I guess I don't fully understand, like he just sort of acknowledged his existence, I guess, or something to that effect. But would it have had the same backlash in terms of causing Lysair to go mad with the curse and deciding to march on Ailston? Or, I mean, I guess he was already doing that, but he's got more of a bloodlust now because of the backlash from Arathon's dealing with the necromancers.
Basically, yeah. Plus the, all the dudes just up and, being immolated,
Yeah.
resulted in.
But didn't we find out in the last chapter that Davian was also a part of this whole setup, right? So maybe
Correct.
Arathon didn't need the Fellowship.
Correct. And, Davian goes and like, when Dakar's like, I gotta go help. And Davian's like, no, he doesn't need your help.
Yeah, that bit did confuse me at the time, because I thought maybe Davian was there for nefarious means, if that makes sense. But then obviously when the plan got enacted, okay, I was like, right, okay.
Is this what Davian brought him back out from the Keyword tunnels for? No, it was to help save Phelan's boat from the Iats. But then I guess he stayed to. Oh, Davian's secret plan that I guess he didn't quite share with Arathon was for him to have to go deal with the necromancers, which is. But
The interesting part for me about that is that, as far as I remember rightly, when he was in the dungeon or the maze of Keywar, Davian wasn't aware that the Centaur visited Arathon in the maze. He just knew there was another presence that he didn't know what it was. So, to my mind, Davian can't have known that was what Arathon was going to do. If it makes sense. Am I right about that, GB?
Well, he didn't know the specifics of what happened, but when he went to check the first part of the maze after Arathon had cleared it, and he's like, wait, there were two other presences here. Why? How? What?
Yeah.
And then he detected that one was Alara, who passed through Arathon's, through their bond. So that's how she got in. And then the other was, the centaur, who, spirit that came out of, and he's even like, yeah, no, nothing I do could have stopped that.
Yeah, I think he did acknowledge it was Paravian.
Yeah, but he just didn't know. He was blind to what happened.
Yeah, he didn't know how or the specifics of it. Yeah.
But he remarks earlier, and I think it's the last batch of chapters we read, where he, rants at Sethvir about, how, he had, basically given them the perfect weapon for dealing with necromancy in the form of Arathon. And Sethvir's all like, "Oh, don't want to risk him with that." And he's like, "Well, I guess you need to decide which thing you're going to risk."
That's true.
Yep.
But the entire bit, there with the centaur relates to what Varsha was saying is, he's had his own sense of identity / name with a capital N reaffirmed by and acknowledge grace of the centaur. So when they're doing the thing of binding the spirit, he's just And he will undoubtedly explain it more to us, because there's a whole bunch of stuff going on there, and sometimes I don't quite,
Well, it's interesting that you said that too, because it was definitely that case for me. Even reading it, it was like, when you go through a lot of these books and there's a lot of lore, like there's so much lore throughout these books, and even when I was reading this kind of section, it was bringing a lot of that lore together for me, even in just the events that were happening, of like clans versus tribes, towns, all of that kind of stuff, the reasons for the differences and what difference that makes to people, and actually why the necromancers are involved in that, and why kind of Arth and Lysair are still linked at that stage, the Leon, all that stuff's kind of thrown together in this kind of singular event, even though it kind of spans a lot of distance and time and people.
Yeah, and it's, if you saw any, Jared was there for the discussion with PL yesterday, too, and she's brought it up, I think, in our last thing, where you're trying to describe things, these highly spiritual, energetic events, and put them in a frame of reference for, which is why she relies on a lot of metaphor and everything to try to describe something that no one reading is going to have a real grasp of.
Yeah, she mentioned about trying to describe the indescribable and trying to describe something that nobody has any experience with, or nobody has any frame of reference even, so
like in this case, how many of us have frame of reference for having our spirit ripped out of our body and then enslaving spells bound around it?
Yeah,
not me.
That happened to me yesterday. What are you talking about? No. Yeah, it, like in when Arathon was under the sway of the necromancers, when he was blind and down in their dungeon there, it was really kind of bleak. Like I was like, what is going on here? This is
don't read.
He almost seemed a little helpless here.
Yeah, it's like it's a little horror there. It's like, don't read this at night.
Yeah, and there was one section where he was just like it was in his head, and he's saying grace was absent, dignity died, light dimmed, and joy became a dumb figment. And I was just like, wow, that's pretty bleak. And where is Arathon going with this, and how is he going to rise above that moment there? And it reminded me of what his state of mind must have been, because he was really smarting. He was really mad about what happened previously on the hill with Alara, and he went off on this mission, and he's in a really low point. And I thought that was described, that feeling was described so well. It made it, I was feeling a little bleak just reading that section. And then of course then he comes out of it, and I'm not sure, in the next section was like called Catalyst or something like that. Yeah. And he I guess he kind of just used the Paravian connection to
the blessing or affirmation of his identity. And but it's just basically like, especially since he's like an initiate master, who's aware of the energetic flow of the mysteries and everything, that what they're doing to him, they're just like yoinking his spirit out of his body and then cutting it off from all of that and enslaving it to their will so they can just feed on it.
I'm feeling the power. Typical Janny style, she plants that seed of doubt in it as well, insofar as giving you the different stage of awareness of Arathon. It's almost like he woke up and he didn't know where he was, but he was on the table, kind of getting at the sacrifice stage, and you're like, oh, well, was this part of his plan? Did he not know what was happening, or was he coerced into doing this, or whatever it was? So it does always create that bit more jeopardy about it, because like we're used to Arathon always being in control, always having a plan, putting it together at the end, and yet here we just weren't sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was unclear about whether he just barely managed to survive or if he was planning to be here all along and he knew exactly what to do. It did feel like he at least had a few moments of disorientation, but he recovered from that. But again, not sure if that also was like he knew that would happen going into it. Sorry, Jared, you were saying something.
No, that's right. Yeah. So did he end up killing all the necromancers, or did he just get rid of some of them? I wasn't quite sure.
The Great Kralavir cult are gone.
Kralavir cult. Yeah.
Between what he did and Luhane and Caradmon's strikes at Darkling and Jayla. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
That group is gone.
And of course, Lyser blames Arathon for the necromancy too.
Yeah. And so did he like kind of turn into this like mode of light that was
was
floating around or whatever
in Davian's den, right?
And then Davian said, "I'll see you in Sampashire."
Yes.
Sampashire,
yeah.
So is he discorporeal now, or?
No, he is still physical, because they talk about just whatever method of transit Davian used. Like how with the lane transfers, they're temporarily shifted to not physical before reassembling at their destination. So just whatever he did was like everything of Arathon was just that little mote of light, and then he reassumed his body there at the focus circle.
Okay. Yeah. That's what it was.
Interesting. Yeah, it's very reminiscent. I'm trying to find a way to say this. I don't think I can. It's very reminiscent, that scene, of another much more recent book series.
That we've read?
Not that we have read, no. That if you ever do read it, you will get the allusion to it. Nobody here, I think, has read it, but it might be interesting if anybody's listening in the comments and is reading along with this book, if you can kind of draw parallels between that and another very long book series, let's say. Something that
will you tell me afterwards?
If you really want. I know you don't, the spoilers are no good for Varsha. She'd probably just scar long book series and read the synopsis of every book there is one, so I may as well tell you.
Yes, please. Thank you.
It's the big moment in that book series, though. It is the major moment in that book series.
Oh,
which book series?
I'll tell you off the stream. I don't want to spoil it for anybody that's on here. So it's very reminiscent of that, though. What happened the Necromancy clan?
Very good.
I had this image of them all like just bursting into
light. Yeah, I sort of had that feeling as well, that they were all linked through the fact that they were all kind of turned into necromancy, but it was especially satisfying when you had the likes of Rate and all that were included in that, and they were, just broken apart in much the same way, and it was like, that's a cool moment.
Yeah, that was great. That was great.
Yes.
And that their whole Rate and his whole setup in that government is now kind of in chaos, and so that was really satisfying actually to see that guy and his cronies all done.
But
Yeah.
but did I read it right that actually in doing all this they broke the words of the Mistress?
No,
No.
something
No,
happened
okay.
with the Mistress, but
Mistress, they set the Mistress free is what I.
There
With
was
curse, it so I mean the curse had already spiked up when
mm,
Lysair lost his temper at the hostel
Yeah.
afterwards,
Yeah.
and then that just Erethan's presence basically radiated out across everywhere and
yeah, he's here, he's there,
set
he's
Lysair off. Yeah.
It's everywhere.
yeah, I know. And then like poor Sulfan was almost killed again.
Yes.
Yes.
I don't think I can cope with that. I'm not ready for that.
No, please don't.
That guy,
Sultan is my Jarrett.
that guy's been
What?
whoa, that's pretty
Yeah,
strong.
what you will feel more strongly for Sulfan Evans than for Jared?
It's not about feeling strong. I just like the idea that there's a ray of hope on the Alliance
Mm.
side of the fence, and if Sultan's not there, that whole cabal, if you want,
Mm,
becomes way less interesting, and I see less road to redemption for them because there's like
okay,
everybody
fair
that
enough.
sees Lysair for what it is or for who he is gone. Like even Kevor and Elaine have extricated themselves from that Alliance
Mm.
part of it as well.
Yep. Yeah, he's Sulfan's he's the cat with 9 lives because I wonder when he's gonna run out.
Yes.
Indeed.
I felt really bad for Dakar throughout this book because he's on this path to mend himself, right? But he was forced repeatedly into aspects of his former debauchery, like forced by various circumstances. First, he had to drink himself to oblivion so that the Koreani won't know where he and Fiona are. Then he had to pretend to be such a terrible person that he'd, handle a bunch of boys like that. And then, yeah, I just felt sorry for. And then the whole sequence with the TNS. I hope he has it better in the next book.
I doubt it.
I
You
doubt it.
don't hope?
No, I
Why?
just doubt it's going to happen. It's in Dakar's personality to suffer. I think.
Yeah.
It's just his life.
He's kind of been getting kicked around for 500 years. And
Yeah. I mean, most of that was his own doing, though. But now that
Yeah,
he's
right.
finally decided to do better for himself, he's
Yeah.
still getting kicked around, and it's
Yep.
not great.
No, I have definitely have grown a fondness for Dakar. Yeah, I hope he comes out okay. But
Yeah.
He's alright. It's no Sulfan.
we still got 4 more books of torture for him.
Seriously, in your ranking, Sulfan over Dakar? What? And Jared? Oh my god,
Okay.
Chris, we need to talk.
Your team Lysair. Marcy, you don't get a leg to stand on here. It's fine.
All right.
Sounds like you're turning to Team Lysaia there, Chris.
Yeah.
Nah. I mean, I would really best end the book 11. Sulfan murders Lysair. That's the best ending that I can get. I have a feeling that's not where the book's going, but
So Team Sulfan minus Lysair. Okay, I can get behind that. Cool. And any other topics to discuss for this finale?
7 down, 4 to go.
7 down, 4 to go. Indeed.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow.
That's amazing.
It does
feels
feel
such a
like
short
very
number.
much after halfway. You know, when we finished Pearl's Gate, and it's like 6 out of 11, and you're like, it's sort of like halfway. I know you're slightly past halfway, but it is that. But no, it definitely feels like we're over the top of the mountain and barreling our way downhill.
That is true.
Yeah.
And we will most likely finish this arc before the end of the year. So that's
Yeah.
Stormed Fortress is the end of it. We will most likely start those discussions early November. We'll talk about it afterwards. But yeah, and it'll be a similar schedule as this one, probably 3 to 4 chapters, whatever puts us at the 150 odd page mark. And yes, these discussions are open to everybody. If you'd like to join us, consider checking out the page chewing forum. So you can talk to Jared. Can you start us off with outros?
Oh, this is
You can
cool.
talk to me there on Page Chewing, and also on my channel, The Fantasy Thinker, on YouTube, and other fine podcasts like Speculative Speculations with my partners here. One of them being
Chris Moon from the Chronicle of Chris YouTube channel. Honestly, that felt good. Also found in the page sharing forums where you can kind of catch up with, like I say, the start date of the next book, as well as other ongoing read-alongs that they have, of which there are many.
Mm-hmm.
Kiwi.
Yes, there are.
I can be found on Patreon forums, looking around there, popping in every once in a while on versus threads, Star Wars and Star Trek, and on Twitter, and yeah.
Oh yeah. The latest one we are battling on is soups and salads. If you want such intriguing
Another
content.
non-contest.
Look,
Like,
soup wins because soup and sandwich. You can't you can have sandwich with a soup. Sandwich and salad doesn't even sound the same. Soup and salad, soup and sandwich runs off the tongue.
That's true. It does. I'm team soup. Anyway, if you'd like to participate in these contests or non-contests, like Chris says, or talk to us about this book or Tigana's coming up soon, the SF Masterworks reading group, consider checking out the Page Chewing Forum. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you a little over a month. But before that, we'll probably have a live stream with the author, Janny Wurts. Bye.